Hello everyone, let's get started. I have no financial interests, I have no sponsored links. However, please check the description of this video. There will be the PDF from the slides I will be showing now. Topics in this video: I will talk about the more low value payments versus less higher treasury payments. Then I will talk a little bit about size and volumes of payments in various payment systems like SWIFT and Target 2, but the same applies to Canada, UK and Australia, where I had found similar figures. Then I will talk about why low value payments won't help anyone. Then I will talk a little bit about contradiction of two statements, and because and go into that a little bit. Then I will clean up some fake news. I will talk about why XRP is not a security, is not something new, and finally my sentiment. Let's start with the first topics: more and low value payments versus treasury payments. As we have seen on utility scan, MoneyGram most likely has been doing $30,000 to $40,000 payments, I don't know, maybe every 5 to 10 minutes. Obviously those were treasury payments. Reason for the treasury payments: real time is not important because it's just like a refill of the Nostro accounts, and thus they can be used to test the system. According to Ashish Biela, this will be changed in a few. Well, he didn't state it exactly like that, but that's my interpretation of it. That MoneyGram and all the others which did have just treasury payments in the past will move more to real-time payments in the future. That means we will see way more but lower real payments and not treasury payments anymore. Effects on XRP about the same as the effects of those $30,000 to $40,000 payments. Nothing. Effects on XRP we will only see when we have several billions per day. So there is nothing to be excited if we move to new all-time highs like 5, 10, 20, 50 million if we continue in this speed with ODL transactions. Let's talk a little bit about size and volume of payments in existing payment systems. SWIFT, check the link in the PDF, has not 5 trillion per day as everyone is assuming, but 1 to 1.5 trillion of volume per day. The large payments in every system are bigger than $1 billion though, and that's the case for Target 2 and SWIFT as well, and I'm assuming for other payment systems as well. Again, check the link in the first line under the SWIFT link. Most payments though are below 1 million. The distribution of those payment systems I have researched is always rather similar. There is roughly 70% of transactions which are rather small, up to $50,000. That depends a little bit on in which country. Sometimes the small ones go to 25K only, but they make in a total size they make less than 1% of the full day volume. Then there is about 20% of the transactions which are medium-sized transactions, which are lower than $1 million. Those make about 1 to 2% of the total daily volume. Then there is the high value transactions, those ones higher than $1 million. That's roughly 10%. But the sum of those amounts being transferred is about 85% of the total size, and that's what we are actually waiting for in order for to be able to reduce the Nostro accounts. I will come back to that later in another slide. And then there is about 0.1% of transactions which are mega large, like really larger than 1 billion, but those will or do make roughly 12% of the total volume per day. Why low value payments won't help anyone? Well, for us as XRP investors, we are interested on XRP price, but we have seen that those payments from MoneyGram, those up to 30 or maybe even $50K didn't affect the price at all. That's correct unless we see such a payment every few seconds. For the banks, and that's what I mentioned before, Nostros will require to exist if only those small and mid-size value payments are done, because they're literally they're making like less than 3% of the total volume. So if you have like a million in Nostros, then that'll be like, $30,000 reduction in Nostros. That's nothing. Mission failed. Ergo, to reduce the Nostro, the high value payments need to go through the system. And by the way, thinking or making us believe that 40K payments are big treasury payments, sorry, but whoever believes that, please go and check the link at the second page, at the third slide where I'm talking about payment sizes. Check the target 2 link. That's just a joke. So basically, Nostros account for 30 to 40% of the current $1.7 trillion yearly cost. Okay? And that basically means if we want to reduce this 30 to 40% of cost, then we have to target the high value payments, because they make the high volume, not volume in amount of transactions, but in size of transactions. That's why they are needed. The latest blog from Ashish Biala produced some confusion, and I think it's not the end of the world. Please see the previous slides where I'm talking about payment sizes, because for me that article was mostly targeted at the XRP community, and that article contradicts totally with the last mile playbook, where it said that the high market opportunity is in countries where there are already domestic real-time gross settlement systems, and this document is basically targeted at banks and governments. And if you ask me which one to take seriously, then it's the last mile playbook and not the blog from Ashish Biala. However, I do respect Ashish Biala, but I think I don't know why he published it. And now something regarding kind of like fake news, where basically there were several articles posted on all those crypto news sites. Forget about those shitty crypto news sites. It's still a pain in the ass. They always get it wrong. Always. Same time this time. Basically, they picked up a tweet from David Schwartz, but they didn't absolutely not understand what he was talking about. And the response from David Schwartz then was, before ODL, we built what we used to call X-Current. And this product did fiat to fiat payments. And that was important because the banks liked the idea of XRP and not requiring nostros anymore, but they didn't want to have their transactions in public. And that's why actually the reason why Ripple came up with ODL, because ODL combines Xcurrent and XRP. Like first fiat goes to the exchange, and this is hidden and totally encrypted. No one knows who is sending. At the exchange, XRP is bought with the money. We still have no clue who, like in the name of whom XRP is bought. Then XRP is transacted on the XRP ledger, which is publicly visible, but as we don't know whom is the originator, it doesn't really matter. And at the receiving end, it happens the same thing. On the exchange, XRP is being sold for fiat, and the fiat is totally encrypted and private, sent to the receiving banks, and that's how it works. However, David Schwartz also, in addition maybe, David Schwartz also mentioned in another tweet, I think in another thread, in a response, that one leg of the ODL transaction can be omitted if, and he added basically an example, if the sender does have XRP already, he can send those. But as I just told before, the banks don't want their transactions publicly visible, so that will never really happen, that the bank will already have XRP and use that XRP for an ODL transaction. That's the whole reason why ODL exists. The same thing on the receiving side. If the recipient wants to receive XRP, this XRP to fiat conversion wouldn't need to take place. But again, banks don't want their transactions to be visible on XRP ledger, so that will never happen. XRP is not a security. The guy whose name is Christian Kahler, who was a chairman of the Commodity and Futures Trading Commission earlier, he basically stated that XRP is not a security. A few comments from my side. First, he's a former chairman of the CFTC and not the SEC. And the SEC regulates securities. Second, he works for Ripple now. Which person at Ripple would state something different, that XRP is a security? I mean, wake up, guys. And then I have a video under the link from Jay Clayton speaking about the DLT. Listen very closely to it. He very clearly states fiat replacements like Bitcoin and Ethereum are not securities. Hence the clarification 2 years ago. He also very clearly states if the token is a security, it will be regulated. He does not say whatsoever we regulate tokens which are not securities. In my humble opinion, the SEC will never say XRP is not a security, cause it's not their job if it isn't. I must be quite disappointed because I have told some not so nice things. Let's look at my sentiment. I'm still very bullish.